There's a kind of heartbreak only gardeners understand. You spend hours hunched over rows of soil, coaxing seeds into the ground with the tenderness of a parent. You water on schedule, measure out expensive fertilizers, rotate your crops, and do everything the books say. But still nothing. Or worse, something. Pale, spindly sprouts that wilt within weeks, leave spotted with disease, stems too weak to stand. That's exactly what happened to my grandmother. She had always been a devoted gardener. A retired elementary school teacher from Michigan, she filled her quiet post-retirement years with a company of tomatoes, peonies, and the occasional butterfly bush. Her backyard wasn't big, but it was hers, her sanctuary, her canvas, her science lab. And for decades it thrived. Until one spring it didn't. She couldn't understand it. The soil looked fine on the surface, dark, crumbly, and moist. But something had shifted. No matter how much she amended it with store-bought compost or triple-action fertilizer, the plants refused to thrive. The ground had become strangely compacted, water pooled on top instead of soaking in, and worms, once abundant, were nowhere to be found. "I think I've lost the soil," she told me one day, her voice quiet with something close to grief. It turned out she wasn't wrong. What she was gardening in wasn't really soil anymore. It was lifeless dirt, a shell of what it used to be. No bacteria, no fungi, no invisible allies underground. Just tired sand and clay masquerading as fertile earth. Years of chemical shortcuts had stripped it of its most essential ingredient, life. And even for my grandmother, someone who once brought an orchid back from the brink with nothing but chamomile tea, this problem felt beyond her. That is, until a chance encounter halfway across the world brought her back to something ancient. Something so simple, so humble, she almost didn't believe it could work. But it did, and it started with rice. My grandmother had always dreamed of visiting Japan. At 65, newly retired, and finally free from lesson plans and parent-teacher conferences, she booked herself a ticket. It wasn't a vacation, exactly. More like a spiritual pilgrimage to the birthplace of the garden traditions she'd quietly admired for decades. The moss-covered stones of Kyoto, the precision of a Zen rake line, the reverence for soil and silence, it called to her. She wandered through ancient temple courtyards, spoke softly with monks, and took 1,000 photos of stone lanterns dappled in morning mist. But the moment that stuck with her didn't happen at a famous shrine. It happened in a small community garden on the outskirts of the city. There, she saw an old farmer, perhaps even older than she was, tending to a row of leafy greens. But instead of using a fancy spray or labeled fertilizer, he poured a cloudy, slightly sour-smelling liquid from an old ceramic jug around the base of the plants. Curious, my grandmother asked a local translator what it was. The answer surprised her. "It's fermented rice water," the translator explained. "An old method. The farmers here have used it for generations to feed the soil, not just the plants. It brings life back to tired land." Fermented rice water? It sounded odd, like something from a folk remedy book. But something about it tugged at her. Not just the simplicity of it, but the reverence. This wasn't just about growing vegetables. It was about healing the ground itself. She didn't take notes. She didn't need to. The idea planted itself in her like a seed, and it would sprout the moment she got back home. Back home in Michigan, her garden was in worse shape than when she'd left. The soil had grown even more compacted, like it was holding a grudge. The zucchini plants she'd babied all spring sat limp in their raised bed, leaves curling inward like fists. Patches of powdery mildew clung stubbornly to her roses, and even the mint, usually a wild, untamable thing, had begun to yellow. It was, in her words, a sick garden. But now she had an idea. She rinsed a cup of uncooked white rice in a glass bowl with just enough water to cloud it. Then she poured that milky liquid into a mason jar, left the lid slightly ajar, and set it on a shelf in the laundry room where it would stay dark and warm for a few days. Each day, she checked on it, noting the sour smell, the thin film forming at the top, the tiny bubbles that meant something alive was happening in there. On day 3, she opened the jar, gave it a cautious sniff, and smiled. It was exactly like the farmer in Kyoto had described. She diluted the fermented liquid, 1 part rice water to 10 parts clean water, and carried it out to her most struggling flower bed. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a small test. She poured the mixture gently at the base of a few marigolds, marked the date in her notebook, and took a photo with her old digital camera. Control group, she muttered, chuckling to herself. She didn't expect miracles, but she did expect to learn something. Her neighbors, however, had their doubts. "You're pouring sour rice water on your petunias?" One of them teased across the fence. "What's next? Spaghetti sauce fertilizer." She laughed politely, then turned back to her soil, unbothered. After all, she wasn't feeding plants anymore. She was feeding the dirt, or rather, what she hoped could become soil again. 2 weeks later, something subtle, but undeniable, began to shift. The marigolds that had once drooped like overcooked spaghetti now stood with a quiet dignity. Their leaves were no longer tinged with that sickly yellow hue, but instead held a deeper, more vibrant green. And when my grandmother gently brushed back the mulch at their base, she found something that hadn't been there in months. New roots. Thin, white, and winding like hopeful fingers through the soil. She knelt down and pressed her hand into the earth. It gave. Slightly. The surface had softened, the texture less like a dry sponge and more like cake crumbs. Not perfect, but better. And for the first time in a long while, it smelled right. Earthy. Alive. By week 6, it wasn't just the plants that were changing, it was the soil itself. Water no longer ran off in rivulets. It soaked in slowly, deeply. The dusty top layer had taken on a darker hue, and the few remaining clods crumbled easily under her trowel. She even spotted a worm, which she greeted with the kind of enthusiasm some people reserve for old friends. Still skeptical, she decided to run a little test. She divided her small vegetable patch into 2 sections. One side continued, getting her weekly fermented rice water treatment. The other, she left alone. Same sun, same plants, same watering schedule, but no microbial tonic. By harvest time, the difference was dramatic. The treated side yielded nearly twice the number of tomatoes. The plants were bushier, more resilient, and needed less pest management. The untreated side wasn't a disaster, but it looked tired, duller somehow. The soil was drier, and the leaves bore the marks of mild disease. When she showed the results to a few friends from her community garden group, they were stunned. "What did you put in there?" One of them asked, half joking. "Magic? Just rice water," she said with a shrug. "The kind I used to throw away." Word spread. A few weeks later, she found herself teaching a group of fellow retirees how to ferment their own rice water. Some were skeptical, others intrigued, but most were simply grateful to learn a way to heal their soil without another trip to the garden center. She smiled. For once, it wasn't about buying more. It was about bringing something back. What my grandmother discovered through instinct and observation, science has increasingly begun to confirm. Healthy soil isn't built with fertilizers. It's built with life. Fermented rice water works, not because it's a miracle liquid, but because it restores what years of synthetic agriculture have stripped away: microbial life. When you rinse uncooked rice, that cloudy liquid you're left with contains tiny amounts of starch, simple sugars, and naturally occurring lactic acid bacteria from the surface of the rice grains. That alone is helpful. But the real magic begins when it's left to ferment. Over 2 to 3 days, those beneficial microbes multiply rapidly, creating a thriving, living solution teeming with lactic acid bacteria, yeasts, and other soil-friendly organisms. These microbes act like a spark in the engine of soil biology. When poured onto depleted earth, they begin breaking down organic matter, releasing nutrients in plant-accessible forms, and improving soil texture by helping bind particles into stable aggregates. It's not just anecdotal, either. In a 2021 study conducted in Vietnam, researchers found that fermented rice water significantly improved the nutrient uptake and root growth of leafy greens compared to both untreated soil and soil treated with synthetic NPK fertilizer. Japanese agricultural extensions have long recommended fermented rice rinses as a low-cost, eco-friendly soil conditioner for small-scale farmers. The science behind these methods continues to grow, even if their origins are centuries old. One key finding: fermented rice water performs far better than raw rice rinse water. The fermentation process boosts microbial activity and changes the pH balance in a way that favors beneficial bacteria while suppressing harmful pathogens. In short, fermented rice water doesn't feed your plants directly. It feeds the soil's invisible workforce. And once that community is alive and well, everything else begins to thrive too. As my grandmother now says with a wink, you don't need to buy better dirt. You just have to feed the dirt you've got. The beauty of fermented rice water isn't just in what it does. It's in how simple it is to make. Here's exactly how my grandmother does it, and how you can too. Start with 1 cup of uncooked rice. Any kind will do. Place it in a bowl and gently rinse it with 2 to 3 cups of clean water, swirling it just enough to cloud the water. You're not trying to scrub the rice clean. Just release the starches and microbes clinging to the grains. Next, pour that milky water into a clean glass jar or container. Loosely cover the top. A lid that isn't sealed works well, and leave it somewhere cool and out of direct sunlight for 2 to 3 days. Check once daily. When it smells slightly sour, like yogurt or kefir, and you see a thin, almost silky film on the surface, it's ready. Now, dilute the fermented liquid at a ratio of 1 part rice water to 10 parts fresh water. Pour this gently at the base of your plants, ideally once every 2 weeks during the growing season. A few important tips. Don't let it ferment more than 4 days, or it may go bad. If it smells rotten, toss it and start over. Fermentation should smell sour, not foul. Always use it immediately after dilution for best results. To boost results, combine with mulch or compost and avoid disturbing the soil too much. Gentle care allows microbial communities to flourish. And most importantly, start small. 1 flower bed, 1 row of beans. You'll see the difference sooner than you think. As my grandmother says, you don't need a science degree to bring soil back to life. Just a jar, a little rice, and a little faith. My grandmother doesn't garden quite as much as she used to. Her knees aren't what they once were, and she's traded her digging fork for a comfortable patio chair. But every morning, without fail, she shuffles out to her rose bushes with a mason jar of that same cloudy, fermented rice water and gives them a gentle pour at the base. It's become more than a routine. It's a kind of ritual. Neighbors now stop and admire her garden, which they've lovingly nicknamed the Revival Patch. Where once there was dry, cracked dirt, now there's lush growth, roses that bloom brighter, herbs that stay green well into fall, and soil that smells rich and alive. But the greatest thing my grandmother nurtured wasn't just her soil. It was a lesson that came not from a store-bought solution, but from a quiet moment in a Kyoto garden, a jar on a laundry shelf, and the patient work of unseen life beneath the surface. She learned that soil doesn't need to be forced into submission. It needs to be heard, federal respected. When we listen to nature, she says, nature knows how to heal. I once asked her if she regretted not finding this method sooner, before her garden struggled, before the frustration. She smiled and shook her head. No, she said. The land had to go quiet so I could hear what it needed. She paused, brushing her fingers gently against the petals of a soft pink rose. People call it rice water, she said. I call it what brought my soul back to life. Then she looked at me, eyes soft with a kind of peace I rarely see in a modern world. And maybe, she added, what brought me back to life a little too.